It's time now for your weekly fishing reports and real-time outdoor news from the Southwest region. This is Fox Sports Outdoors Southwest.
Hey everybody, welcome into the show. Of all the 50 states in America, which ones would you say would be the very best crappie fishing states? Would it be the great state of Texas, or Oklahoma, or Alabama, or maybe Georgia? Well, on today's show, I hope to present some evidence to you that just may prove that the state of Mississippi, the Magnolia State, just may be one of the best crappie fishing states, at least for big crappie, of any state in America. Now, to help us do that, we got a couple of true crappie fishing professionals along with us today. Brad Chappell and Bo Hudson, guide for crappie at reservoirs all up and down the I-55 corridor and at the Oxbow Lakes off the Mississippi River for some of these big crappie. We're going to be fishing side by side with them today and demonstrating for you some very unusual techniques that they use to catch crappie here in Mississippi. And while we're out doing that on Lake Washington, which is a little oxbow lake, 5,000 acres just off the Mississippi River, we're going to be swinging you around your local region for your favorite fishing reports from your best lakes, rivers, and bays. It's going to be a lot of fun right now. We're going to get that NITRO Z8 launched down the boat ramp into Lake Washington, just south of Greenville, Mississippi. While we're doing that, we're taking you back to the FSN studios for your weekend planning.
The Salooner tables are promising some of the best fishing activity of the month for this weekend. Saturday's forecast shows excellent conditions with the best daylight hours beginning around noon. And Sunday's outlook is listed as good, with the peak action starting at 1:26 in the afternoon. Expect sunrise to take place at 6:19, with sunset happening at 8:36. And Friday features a full moon, so evenings should be bright. We'll be right back with all of the current fishing reports from around the Southwest. And I'll return with professional angler Kevin Van Dam with some boating tips on this week's Whataburger Ask the Pro.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. By Mercury Marine, celebrating 75 years of marine excellence. By Stren Fishing Lines, the standard of dependability. By Tracker Boats, it's more than just a boat, it's a tracker. And by Fort Worth Nissan. Fox Sports Outdoors is powered by Fort Worth Nissan.
There's one right there. There he comes. Hey, welcome back everybody. Fox Sports Outdoors today coming to you from Mississippi, home of big crappie. I'm gonna get the net out after this one. Oh, look at this. My first Mississippi crappie out of Lake Washington. Oh, and the jig just came out of his mouth. That easy. Look at that. That's a fat pig right there. All right, Fox Sports Outdoors at Lake Washington today. This is an oxbow lake. It's a cut-off oxbow. Some of the oxbows are open to the river where there's actually current coming out of the river through the oxbow, but this one is actually cut off at both ends. It was cut off a couple of hundred years ago. It's about 5,000 acres. It's only about 20 feet deep at the very deepest, but most of the lake is 6, 7 feet deep, something like that. That's all it is. And these fish stay shallow pretty much year round. What a great crappie. That's going to be a, man, I don't know, that's probably close to a 2-pound crappie for my very first one right there. Let him go back. All right. Well, we're going to do two different techniques today, or talk to you about two techniques that they use here in Mississippi to catch these crappie: spider rigging and long lining, and I'll talk to you about both of those a little bit later on. Now, the water's pretty dingy here. Most of Mississippi has pretty dingy water, and you can see down about maybe 18 inches, something like that, and that's on a clear day. Right now, let's get you started with some fishing reports from around your local region, and let's go to Oklahoma with Gary Dollahan.
Legendary angler Jimmy Houston honed his fishing skills on beautiful Lake Tenkiller. So has Jason Christie, one of the hottest names along the professional fishing trail. Ran into Jason Christie last week. He's still fishing his favorite body of water, although he doesn't get to as often as he used to because of his travel. Here's what he said you can do to catch fish right now on Lake Tenkiller.
If I was going to Tenkiller and I had to pick up 2 rods to take with me, this is to catch a big one, largemouth or smallmouth, I pick up a Czar spook. What's going on is there's still a few fish that are up on the bank that are done spawning. You know, a few's garden fry, and they're on their way out, but there's still some on the bank. I mean, you can get early in the morning, late in the evening, you can get some big bites on the spook. What's going on is these fish are headed out, and when I'm fishing, I want to be where they're coming to. My second choice would be a big crankbait. This is a BD7. That's actually the color I throw here a lot. You know, these fish will move out. What they do is they move out and they set up on these ridges and these humps and brush piles and stuff, and they just feed up, and they'll be here for 2 to 3 weeks. You know, I fished this morning, I've caught some smallmouth, caught some Kentuckys, caught some largemouth, caught some sand bass. It's just a lot of action when you find that right spot out there.
We also ran into Jason's friend, Wayne Shores, who was doing exactly what Jason talked about with that Zara spook going down the bank. Wayne caught 2 overs, had several blow-ups, and a great morning of fishing. These are techniques that you can also use right now from McGee Creek, Broken Bow, and our other Clearwater reservoirs. Great time to be fishing in Oklahoma, but one thing about it, you can't catch them if you don't go.
We're still on Washington Lake in Mississippi, just off the Mississippi River. We're out here with Bo Hudson and Brad Chappell, and you can see right in front of me, Brad is tied into one right now, and this looks like a little bit better fish right here. So we're gonna follow him just for a second while he fights this fish and just see what he's got. Bo's got the net there. These guys guide for these fish and stay on top of them on lots of lakes. All right, that is what you come to this lake for right there. They catch them like this regularly. You can book a guide trip with these guys, and if you want to do that, we'll put their phone number up on the screen, and Brad's got a Facebook page, and they're gonna slap a scale on that fish just to see what it weighs, and 2 pounds and 5 ounces. So there's you a legit 2-pound crappie right there, 2 pounds, 5 ounces. We're not keeping them today, so we're letting them go back, but that's what you can catch right here. Got a hit. They got a hit right there. Got him. All right. We got us another crappie. We came up splashing right there behind the power pole. Another big old crappie. Look at this. This is just the way they grow over here. Welcome back, everybody. Glad you're with us on the show today. We are catching some whopper crappie today in Mississippi. I told you at the beginning of the show that I was going to probably convince you that Mississippi may be one of the best crappie lakes in the entire United States. And there's a perfect example of the way they grow over here. We're going to let that one go back. Let me explain to you some of the opportunities to catch crappie. Now, as I told you, Bo and Brad will give you all their information at the end of the show. They guide for these fish at all these lakes. But in the I-55 corridor, starting up north, there's Lake Sardis, Enid, then there's Grenada, which is a dynamite crappie lake, and then Ross Barnett. Then there are the Oxbow lakes that are just coming off the Mississippi River, and this is one of them, Lake Washington. There's Lake Lee, just north of here, and several more all the way down to Vicksburg. This is barren fishing. There's no cover, no brush, no structure, no drop-offs. This is just a big open bowl, which is the way it is on most of these reservoirs, and the fish suspend up off the bottom, and that's why it takes these long lining techniques and spider rigging techniques like we're showing you today. Right now, let's get you some more fishing reports though. Let's check in with Cajun Phil and Kevin in Louisiana.
Hey friends, Captain Kevin Broussard here with your Fox Sports Louisiana Saltwater Report. Well, I tell you what, we're starting to get into that early summertime pattern. Had some guests down this morning. We went out red fishing. We knew we didn't have long, a few hours, had some weather coming. Threw some live shrimp under popping corks, fishing the jetty rocks, and I tell you what, we had a great day. Down here at Cajun Paradise Lodge and Charters, the trout fishing is starting to pick up, but we are tearing the redfish up, as you can see. If you want to make a trip, the number's on the screen, give us a call.
I tell you what, friends, we haven't had a whole lot of freshwater reports this week, so I want to continue on the saltwater if you don't mind. First of all, Captain Bill Lake down around Dulac, Louisiana, has been tearing up the speckled trout and the redfish. If you want a lot of speckled trout, you want numbers, call Captain Bill Lake. As far as other areas, Shell Beach, Captain Brett R.D.'s have been catching lots of drum, redfish, and speckled trout all week long. He's been coming in with a lot of reports. As far as the only freshwater report I got this week, it comes from the Atchafalaya Basin. Friends at the Atchafalaya Basin right now, they're catching bluegill, chickapin, goggle-eye, white bass, white perch, and black bass. They're catching them all right now, so the Atchafalaya Basin would be a good bet to go fishing right now.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Costa Sunglasses. See what's out there. By Luz, setting a new standard in fishing performance. Feel the difference. By Strike King Lures, #1 in fishing. By Lowrance Electronics, find, navigate, dominate. And by Whataburger. Get your day started at Whataburger with the new jalapeno cheddar biscuit.
There's one right there. Got him. That feels like a good fish right there. Hey, we're still on Lake Washington, home of big crappie. I tell you, the state of Mississippi is got to be the most underrated state for crappie fishing of all the states in America. Let's see if I can pull him right in here and net him. I got him. All right, there is just one more of those good average sized crappie that grow in the state of Mississippi right there. Look at the fat belly on that dude. They just eat shad and minnows and crawfish. All right, well, we're gonna let that one go back. You get your release today. Okay, let me show you the two setups for catching these crappie the way they catch them here in the Southeast, particularly here in Mississippi. This is a 14-foot long Luz crappie pole. This is the Wally Marshall Signature Series. And all I'm doing is making a long cast out there, and then I'm peeling off some line and letting this bait go about 20 yards behind the boat. Got the trolling motor on constant, and I'm rolling about 1.0 miles an hour, anywhere from 0.8 to 1.1. Then once this bait gets out there, I put the long rod in the front rod holder so it holds that bait out away from the boat. Then I've got the shorter 11, 12-foot rod right in here behind it. So I roll them side by side on this side, two on that side, and then I've got the trolling motor up here on constant, 0.8 to 1.1 miles an hour with a little 1/24 ounce Moglo jig head, Bobby Garland. I'll show you the baits at the end of the show. Now the other way that they get caught here is if they're not scattered like they are today. We're covering a lot of water with this. We're just trolling up and down little 6-foot break line here. It goes from about 4.5 to about 6.5 feet, staying right on that break line and just trolling up and down in circles, covering a lot of ground. Now, if they bunch up a little more where we can get right on top of them, then that spider rigging technique works well, and that just involves more vertical fishing. So all you're doing is just letting out about 4 or 5 feet of line, something like that, and slowing that trolling motor down to about 0.3 miles an hour. And I'm watching on my Lowrance HDS9 up here. This is the touchscreen unit, and I've got it set up where I can see my speed over ground over here in the top left-hand side of the screen. I'll show you a quick shot of what that looks like here. On the spider rigging, you roll along about 0.3, 0.4, real slow, and you set these rods more horizontally, straight out away from the boat, fishing straight down, gently rolling along, covering a lot less water, but when the fish are bunched up, that spider rigging technique works a lot better. Let's go back to Texas, check in with Brian Hughes and Freshwater Report, Bill Olson down on the coast.
Hi folks, and welcome to this week's Lone Star Lakes, brought to you by Decked, the most innovative truck bed storage system ever. Now this week we're at Little Cleburne State Park, which is a rather small lake, but since folks are always asking me about bank fishing, I thought I'd bring you to a lake that has a lot of bank fishing. Plenty of access all around the lake. As a matter of fact, the boat ramp is actually closed for low water levels, but with a canoe or a two-man boat, you can still get on the water, and the fish haven't been bothered. Now, a junior record was recently set with an 827 largemouth bass, and Cleburne does have good bass fishing. They also have good crappie and good bluegill. Now, working in reverse for what we just said, you start your bluegills with a simple either cricket or earthworm on a #1 hook under a cork light line. That's easy enough. For your crappie, you'll want to reach a little bit deeper, try to find some of the brush piles, and I recommend your crappie rigs also under a cork to keep them up off the bottom and out of any trouble. For your bass, you can go, again, bobber and minnow, bobber and earthworms, or you can go ahead and throw those Texas rigs and drag them around out there along the banks, and you may catch another record from this park. That's Cleburne State Park. That's this week's Lone Star Lakes, brought to you by Decked, who reminds you, work smarter, play harder. Now let's check in with Mr. Bill Olson. He's on the coast. Hi folks, this week's report is brought to you by Port Aransas on Mustang Island, the fishing capital of Texas, where anglers enjoy pristine bays, estuaries, 18 miles of surf, and the deep blue waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Plus the local restaurants will even cook your catch come sundown. Come fish and play Texas Island style. For more information, visit portaransas.org. Well, fishing has really picked up since the recent rains. Birds are active all over Sabine Lake. Trout and reds are being caught from the mussel shoals on the Louisiana side. Trinity Bay's, its shorelines, as well as mid-bay reefs and old well shell pads are holding some solid speckled trout. Anglers weight fishing East Galveston Bay continue to catch specks on a variety of topwater lures early and soft plastics later in the day. Now, Chocolate Bay is often overlooked, but also benefits from the rain flush of a couple of weeks ago. In fact, the entire area, including San Luis Pass and in behind West Galveston Island, has solid fish. Now, East and West Matagorda Bays are seeing good fishing along the shorelines, grass beds, and reefs either side of the big jetties out of Port O'Connor. The surf is also starting to give up some trout on light wind days. Now, the south end of San Antonio Bay, just inside of St. Charles Bay, all along St. Joe and Mustang Island, are holding speckled trout. The rocks around the mouth of Baffin continue to hold good trout, and Yarborough has some redfish. North of Port Mansfield's East Cut, behind Padre Island and up into the land cut, trout are on the move. The area around Three Islands to the south is also holding some solid specks with scattered redfish. Now, on the lower coast from Stover's Point to Cullens and from Gas Wells to Duncan has given up trout and scattered redfish on a variety of baits. Long Bar, Mexicana Flats, and South Bay continue to produce. This weekend, Saturday has a double tide schedule of 2 high and 2 low tides. This Sunday is a 3 tide day with 2 high tides and just 1 low. I'm Bill Olson, and I'll see you on the coast.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Exide AGM Marine Batteries. Starts like new, stays like new longer. By Gene LaRue and Bobby Garland Lures. With our baits, a good day of fishing is in the bag. By Motor Guide, trolling motors engineered for anglers. And by NITRO Performance Fishing Boats. Welcome to the big leagues.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for the Whataburger Ask the Pro. This week's question is from Joshua, who asks, what are some good tips on driving your boat in strong winds and big waves? For the answer, we asked tournament legend Kevin Van Dam.
You know, that's a good question because I spend a lot of time on the Great Lakes where the waves get real big and the wind seems to always be blowing. The biggest thing is pay a lot of attention looking out in front of you, trying to look at the wave pattern in front of you, and never go directly with the waves or directly into really big waves. You want to always cut them at a little bit of an angle. And you know, so if you got to go across the lake this way and the wind's blowing right at you, kind of go back and forth the same way a sailboat would have to go. Just take your time, you know, keep that engine trimmed, you know, a little bit lower, keep your jack plate down, keep that bow up, and just take your time and go back and forth at an angle through those waves.
Thank you, Kevin. If you have a question for one of the experts, visit our website, follow the Ask the Pro link, and let us know. Now let's see which viewer wins the Costa Catch of the Week.
This week's winner in the Costa Catch of the Week contest is Clayton Wessels of Columbus, Texas. He's showing here his personal best 30-inch, 10-pound speckled trout he caught out of West Matagorda Bay, Texas. If you'd like to enter our Big Fish Photo Contest, the Costa Catch of the Week, simply go to our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com, and on the right-hand side of the front page, click in the Costa Catch of the Week box, follow the instructions. You could be our next winner of a brand new pair of Costa sunglasses. Now, you can see all of the Costa frame and lens styles, like the frame style I've been wearing on today's episode called Tag, at the Costa website. You get there by going back to the front page of our website, clicking on the Costa logo, and from there it takes you straight to the Costa website. You can see all of their frame and lens styles. Pick out one for your very own. Next up on the Academy Sports and Outdoors Right Stuff feature. It's the right gear to do some long lining or spider rigging like you saw us doing on this week's episode in Mississippi. To do this, you're absolutely going to need a great trolling motor like the Motor Guide Tour Edition or the XI5 that we talked about, and you need a great battery like the Exide AGM batteries are available all across our region. This is where all marine battery technology is headed. They're a little more expensive, but well worth it. They last way longer. They charge quicker. You can mount them in any position on their side, right side up, any way you want because they're sealed. The new Exide AGM batteries are the way to go. Now, as far as the rigs that we used for the long lining today in particular, we started with a 14-foot Lew's Wally Marshall Troll Tech crappie rod. Again, this is a 14-footer to get you way out away from the boat. And for fishing a little closer in, it's the Wally Marshall Signature Series 11-footer. So you've got a 14 and an 11 side by side on each side of the boat. That does a great job. And as you can see here, we used the little Bobby Garland Stroll R. That's a great trolling bait, a little long lining bait to catch these big crappie here at Washington. A few weeks before our show went on the air this season, I was asked to give the eulogy at my Aunt Patty's funeral. It was a really great experience because she lived a very full life. She rode in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. She appeared on an episode of Rescue 911. She was a competitive barrel racer, and she even got to babysit Tarzan and Jane's pet monkey named, remember, Cheetah. You know, when it was time for my Aunt Patty to go, she looked back on a life well lived. She was a great wife, a great mother. She knew her Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. She was ready to go, and when that time came, she had no regrets. You know, one of my favorite country songs is by a singer named Tim McGraw, who sings a song called Live Like You Were Dying. And it talks about living your life like each day was your very last. So here's the question. What would you do if today or tomorrow were your last day on earth? My recommendation for you and me both is to live each day like it was our very last day. Live life to its fullest. Then when it's time to go, you look back over your shoulder, no regrets. Hey, I hope you enjoyed our trip to Washington Lake here in Mississippi, just off the Mississippi River with a couple of good dudes, good anglers, good fishing guides. If you want to book a trip with Bo and Brad, you can book that. The information you see right now on your screen, or you can get that on the members only section of our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com. Hey, don't forget to join us next Thursday evening for the next episode of our show. Then the show re-airs on the weekend as well. You can always get the latest time for the next episode of our show right on the front page of that same website. See you next week. Until then, I'm Barry Stokes saying be safe, have fun. Bye-bye, y'all.